The Solar System Origin Part 2. Well, there's no place like home. Home, home on the earth, where the earthlings and the aliens do play. I have with me cucumber and zucchini, green men, denizens of the deep out there, so to speak, and knowledgeable in matters astronomical and problematical when it comes to the planets and outer space. Tell us, Mrs. Greenmen, Cucumber and Zucchini, why is it that there is no widely accepted model of planet formation? Why is it that planet origin theories are having difficulty?
As a cucumber, I would suggest that some theories were picked too long ago and have become somewhat spongy.
It sounds like a green frog got mixed up in it too.
As a zucchini, I agree. When was Laplace and his hypothesis? Same time as Napoleon?
Yeah, just refresh us on the nebula hypothesis. I'm a bit spongy on that one.
Yes, well, we don't need to have green vegetables going stale. The Laplacian or nebula hypothesis, it was not entirely the work of Laplace, but he was the mathematician involved, and a very brilliant mathematician he was. It calls upon a spinning gas cloud, which becomes disc-shaped, perhaps a bit like a flying saucer if you looked at it edge-on, this being the shape which is most dynamically stable, with the sun ultimately to form in the centre.
What makes the gaseous material coalesce into solid matter?
To understand that, we need a plate park spinner. Everyone runs around the edge of the spinning disc, jumps on, rolls into the centre, and it spins fast, or it speeds up as they move to the centre. A spinning disc-shaped nebula contracting towards the centre, perhaps because of gravitational attraction, might throw off concentric rings at the fast spinning margin. And these rings, theoretically, might have coalesced into planets. The problem being, what actually makes them coalesce into distinct planets? Now, an Australian mathematician named Prentice, Dr. Prentice, recently revived the Laplacian theory by calculating that high-speed turbulence, multi-supersonic, could lead to coalescing of the nebulous material. The problem remains, though, that he did not show beyond any doubt that the same turbulence, having temporarily brought a quantity of this material together, would not then disperse it again. I wrote to Dr. Prentice, and I almost implied that he is a cucumber.
A cucumber?
Yes, Dr. Prentice became quite excited when his predictions about the moons of the gas and ice giants were confirmed. By golly, it must be the wettest Queensland season on record. The frogs here are in plague proportions. He managed to get onto media programs. With all these Laplacian rings forming planets everywhere, he assured everyone that we certainly aren't alone in the universe. I advised him that we certainly aren't alone. Why? There's the Martians, there's the little green men, and then there's the members of his faculty at his university.
All extraterrestrial?
Unearthly, even.
Cucumber-like, perhaps.
The solar system would be a queer sort of spinning vegetable patch. Listen to this. 99% of the mass is in the sun, while 99% of its angular momentum is in the planets.
So the watermelon at the middle, the sun, effectively has all of the matter, but none of the spin. And the mini melons that are spinning around it, the planets, have effectively none of the matter, but have all of the spin.
It scarcely looks like it forms from a single uniform spinning gas body, does it?
Especially when you consider that the tiny little inner planets, such as Earth, Venus, Mars and Mercury, are stone and metal, whilst the much more distant giant planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune, are ice and gas with relatively smaller amounts of stone and metal.
Where have the planet pundits been going off course?
You say their models were picked too long ago and have gone off? Yes! We green and vegetables need to stay fresh.
What didn't they understand about the universe back in the times of Napoleon that they understand now?
That we live in an expanding universe, black holes and all that stuff.
Not to mention Einsteinian relativity and time and space warping around large objects. It's a completely different scene to what it was back in the times of Napoleon and Laplace. An expanding universe implies a scenario at the time of solar system formation, and that's quite a few thousand million years ago, in which objects were much more closely packed than is currently the case. There might have even been some frogs amongst them. People such as Laplace were thinking in a vacuum, and outer space hasn't always been as much of a vacuum as it is now.
Meaning that factors that we see operative around us, such as the mechanics of sound waves, the effects of electricity, magnetism, and the interaction of particles, both large and subatomic, could have come into play much more in those ancient times, more than what they do in the vast expanse of space.
You mean that things we see operating in the atmosphere around us could have come into play at that time?
A crisp observation, Mr. Cucumber. Of course, if we look at the Bible, we are given the distinct hint that if we wish to gain some ideas about planetary, and Earth is a planet, planetary formation, think in terms of fluids, turbulence, sound, flow of fluid substances, turbulent flow. A little bit like the atmosphere.
You mean we can learn something from what goes on in the atmosphere and perhaps even the oceans around us?
Nothing less. Even perhaps the secret of raindrop, hail and snow formation, and these could perhaps be linked to the coalescing of planets. So the link is implied, it's not obvious.
Talking about weather and coming together of particles to form larger particles, I have noticed sometimes a clap of thunder affects the rate at which rain is falling if you happen to be in the vicinity of the lightning strike.
Would that be the effect of the sound or of the electrical discharge?
So the Bible actually suggests that the gathering together or the coalescing of nebulous material to form larger objects might have to do with the properties of various fluids, water possibly included, and that factors such as the impact of sound, a magnetic field, and electrical discharge through those fluids may come into play.
Not only so, but I suspect that the result of strong electrical flows within powerful stellar magnetic fields might have been a factor in starting the planet spinning. Some would suggest that dogs were involved here, but I doubt it.
You mean that like a sort of starter motor effect? Electrical current in a magnetic field results in mechanical force and also some dogs barking?
That's conjectural. I don't know whether it's Mars or Earth, that one. I wish he'd chase some of these frogs. That's conjectural, but certainly in an early, more compact universe, the mechanical effects of sound, light, and electrical discharge may have been sufficient to explain the condensing of nebulous matter into spinning balls of matter, early planets.
With the sun still at the centre?
Do you need that melon at the centre? Couldn't there have been something smaller in the centre and the melon there later?
Yes, certainly. We're getting a little mixed up here with dog bones, melons, Mars and Earth, but things are starting to come together.